We got a little bit of a late night patient here. Hello, sir. How can I help you? Hey, how are you?
Good.
All right. This is my favorite guy in the world here. What's your name?
Darian.
Darian. Darian, this is my son. All right, you've come to pick me up?
Yes.
So let's walk home. All right, let's go. By the way, just before I go, let me show you guys this stuff. See, in this little room here, which used to be my little office in the, now you have all these little boxes, and these boxes are all Morita CBCT stuff that is all going to get installed tomorrow. So, as you can see here, we're going to have the VeriView 800 being installed here tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to find out the capability of this machine. Obviously, it can do a lot of stuff. So we'll see how it does. All right, so what I'm going to do is, as we're going to be walking home, now it's kind of late at night, but I'll share with you a case that I did today that I think is fairly interesting as it relates to the use of heat-treated files with non-heat-treated files, which is basically the new blend protocol. And I guess I'll just quickly, given the success of the previous video that I put up yesterday with you guys, so I'll just put up another video on Facebook and see how you guys like it. This is going to be about a case that I did again today. Which had a kind of a double curve, so that's kind of interesting in that sense. And we're going to talk about how I managed it very quickly when you have a double curve. So essentially what you need to do whenever you have a double curve is you have to make sure that you manage the first curve differently than the second curve. And that's a fairly easy kind of a technique. What you need to do is you use non-heat treated orifice openers as well as austenitic files here to treat the top part of the canal first. And then you go only up to the first curve, and then what happens is that you're going to treat the second half with the heat-treated endosequence scout files or other heat-treated files. Okay, so when you're trying to get an orifice opener in the tooth at the beginning early stages, especially where you have large curves, of course not here in a distal root, which is fairly straight in this tooth, but on the mesials, it's very important to have really short amplitude and very light touch when you're going in there. So whether you're using SSC, which as I've mentioned before, which is a single stroke and clean, or the rhythm motion as you see here with 3 light strokes, the key here is to have a very, very light touch so that you don't end up putting too much pressure on the file, especially around the first curve, and potentially cause a ledge or overstressing the tip of the file. Of course, we have to have an obligatory stop right here at the candy shop. I know as a dentist I should not be letting him have any candy, but unfortunately it's my own weakness as well, so can't be a hypocrite there. As long as you brush and floss afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Scanning your items. Hair card.
Well, I guess I now know why he came to pick me up. Okay, so what you got to do is you treat the top of the crown here with austenitic files, like such as an orifice opener or like the regular endosequence. And as you get around the first curve, then you end up using the martensitic files, which include the endosequence scouts here. So on my setup that I had for this particular tooth, I had sizes the orifice opener ESX, which is a 2008. Then I used the endosequence 2504 instead of the regular thing on the blend, which is a 3004. Here I use the 25 because when you have a very thin curved canal, you might as well start with a smaller 2504. And then I use the also the size 25 and 20 and 17 endosequence scouts. You may say, well, the 25 endosequence scout and the 25 endosequence might be redundant, but the scout is the more flexible with the landed area version of the endosequence. So I use that in a crown down fashion until the number 17 endosequence scout reached the end of the root, and with the endosync and endosync AI validation. And then what I did is I went on to get the next endosequence scout, which is the 20, followed by the 25 to the apex, and then the actual 25 endosequence to create the synchronicity. On the distal root, however, what we had is we had a much larger canal anatomy than the mesial double curved root. So on that one, only taking a 25 to the apex would have left a lot of tissue behind. this tooth was having irreversible pulpitis, so it was important to make sure that all the tissue is out. So on the distal, what I did is that after I get the 25 to the apex, I jumped all the way up to the size 40 or 4 endosequence to have an adequately enlarged apical diameter, so all the tissue is out. That was pretty much it. Now, one other issue that I wanted to mention is in this particular tooth, there was a recent core prior to the placement of the temporary crown, and the tooth had become irreversibly inflamed. After access preparation, I found an area of discoloration underneath the core, which was basically just a little bit of remaining decay. Now, when you do leave a little bit of decay behind, this is the kind of sequela that takes place. You end up having a tooth that goes irreversibly inflamed. So make sure all the decay is out, unless you're doing some type of an indirect pulp cap. So finally, the tooth was treated, and when I obturated it with the biceramic high flow, in this particular case because I wanted to get a little bit more radial opacity, and I used size 20 cones in the mesials, because sometimes you have to drop down a size to get a little bit of better adaptation and make sure the master cone goes all the way down to the apex. So although I had prepared to a 25 04 endosequence, I ended up fitting a size 20 biceramic coated endosequence cones with the BC high flow, which is more radial opaque and has a little bit better flow in this particular case, so I could get the shape that I wanted. And then lastly, I put some VCERM, which is the endo restorative material, which is a dual cure bioceramic in the axis opening, just to kind of give an immediate kind of a coronal seal following the placement of a spacer and then re-cementing the provisional. Anyway, I hope this little tutorial was helpful to you, and you saw the case that I did this morning and how I managed this double curve with the final fill with the high flow and hydraulic condensation. And that's it from Ali Nasseh and from Sir Darian Nasseh here having his little sugar and is going to brush later on. Surreal endo, and let's save some teeth.